So I'm going to be talking about aging in place and comparing that with downsizing and helping you guys figure out what exactly is right for you. So I'll be covering a few main topics to consider when debating whether aging in place is right for you or downsizing is right for you. There's health and safety topics we should discuss. There's financial considerations I'm sure you would figure, and of course there's lifestyle and emotional impact that we should hit as well. So we're debating aging in place and downsizing. So as far as aging in place goes, it's really what does it look like? What are some of the benefits? To begin with, not having to move is pretty great, right? Moving is always a chore. If you were to choose to age in place, it preserves a lot of familiarity with your environment and your immediate surroundings, and of course, the people that you see every day, your neighbors, your friends. So there's not a lot of change as far as that goes, which is always a benefit. It also preserves a lot of emotional attachments you have to people and to places that you go to and the things that you have in your space. And a lot of times your animals too might not have a place if you were to downsize, depending on where you go. It does require some proactive planning to avoid isolation, which can happen sometimes. If you decide to stay in the home you've always been in, but become less and less mobile, like that is a thing that happens. Now, on the other side, with downsizing, what does that look like? What are some of the benefits of downsizing? It could really mean several different things, first of all. You could be moving into maybe a smaller, more manageable, maybe a single story house. It can really simplify your life doing something like that. It might mean a completely independent living facility, like or a home with no real change to your lifestyle. But now you're in a setting where your peers are probably going to be in an age restricted group, community where there's 55 plus. And sometimes you could even just be downsizing to something that's not so much to take care of. And it's not necessarily age restricted. Often it can mean finding a really great senior living facility or a home that can offer you assistance in daily living and sometimes memory care if that's needed as well. Downsizing can lead to lower stress levels, to be honest. Daily life can get complicated, and downsizing can make it a little more simple. We got to assess both our current needs and our future needs, right? We have lots of things to consider. We have, trip and fall hazards. We also have things that are not so obvious, like mobility, chronic conditions. You got to be concerned about potential falls and basic things to do like daily chores and making sure to take medications on time. Any everyday necessities are stuff that you want to keep in mind when making this kind of evaluation. So if you decide to stay in your home, it might require some modifications, right? You might need to make some changes to the house to make it a little more safety, a little more appropriate for someone who's less mobile than they once been. We're thinking like things like grab bars, sometimes stair lifts or floor transitions, ramps if needed. These are common home modifications that people make when it comes to health and safety and staying in a home. Another thing that's helpful when you are staying in place is to make sure that you have established medical provider relationships in place and that you have convenient access to them can really go a long way in making the whole process better. Hassan here actually owns a home care company. So a home care provider like his company can do a great job to bridge the gap between staying in your home and moving into a different space. So there's definitely a middle ground between this downsizing and aging in place topic that we're discussing here. As far as downsizing goes, it has different phases, and it doesn't always mean moving into a senior care facility. Have you guys ever heard of a CCRC? It stands for Continuing Care Retirement Community. And so they're pretty cool because basically you move in when you're able-bodied, healthy, you're fine, but it is a senior community. And so that if you find yourself, maybe you have an accident or something happens and you're less independent, well, they have assistance that they can offer you. And then maybe some more time goes by, maybe some memory issues that pop up or something. A lot of them also have memory care as an offering as well. So to consider a place like a CCRC or a continuing care retirement community is a really good idea. Talk about the finances. That's always important, right? So there's a cost analysis you have to do. Aging in place may involve some various ongoing expenses, things like home modifications, maintenance, repairs, utilities, some of the modification things I've already talked about. Of course, property taxes are not going to go away. You've got things to consider as far as the finance side goes when you're staying in a place of your own. Cool thing, there's no moving costs. There's no new rental fees or other dues required for a new living situation. So that's on the other side of it. Now, if you were to decide to downsize, you could really release a lot of equity and put it to work. And what I mean by that is think about how much the homes in Claremont are selling for these days. They're regularly over $1 million, right? So depending on how much there's a loan against the property, whatever, that kind of money can really take you well into your golden years and comfortably if you were to downsize and reallocate those funds and put them to work for you. And that's a very common decision if people don't happen to have a giant nest egg sitting around for them, which a lot of people do and a lot of people don't. Tapping into the equity is a big benefit of downsizing. To be fair, there's going to be real estate fees and there's going to be new purchase fees if you're buying a smaller home. There are standard and customary things that go along with that, but overall, you're really tapping into the equity that you've built up all those years. They're essentially one-time fees as opposed to an ongoing, hi, welcome in, ongoing costs of ownership. Interestingly, I don't know how much you guys know about Prop 19. It's pretty cool. So if you are a homeowner, Prop 19 allows you to transfer an old tax base. So you're paying on a lower property tax and taking it into wherever you decide to downsize. It's a big deal. You have to be 55 plus. You can actually do it as long as you stay within the state of California. You can do this 3 times. So if the new home is more expensive, the property tax base is blended. So they're not just going to give you a free ticket to buy some super expensive home and keep that old tax base. But, you're still going to have the result be a partial tax increase, but it's way less significant than it would be if you were to simply sell and buy a home. Even an equal type of home at today's values are going to be way higher than what you decided to pay for it a long time ago. There are some limitations, of course, like both the property that you're in now and the one that you're going to be downsizing into both have to be your primary residence on your tax return. So you can't be doing this for investment purposes or anything like that and kind of getting away with something on the IRS. It's a really great feature that pretty much resulted from people kind of being pushed out of their own homes because taxes got so high. And so they said, hey, we should do something about this, and they've addressed it for us, which is great. There's also rules regarding inheritance if you were to pass your property down related to Prop 19. It used to be a lot more heir or dependent friendly than it is now. Nowadays, if you're going to pass your property down to someone else that is your kid or grandkid, they have to move into it in order to take advantage of that lower property tax base. If they want to use it for vacation once in a while or want to rent the property out, the government will reassess that property at today's taxes and they're going to take as much as they can. So that's the way it works. Let's talk about the lifestyle and the emotional impact when you're debating whether you should age in place or downsize. You staying in your place, like I said before, you've got your routine, you've got continuity. Like I mentioned earlier, if you have pets, then that's not an issue. It might be depending on if you end up moving. And on the other hand, like we said, sometimes loneliness can become an issue if you've got friends and family that don't stay around like you've decided to stay in the same neighborhood. When talking about what's really best for you, not everyone has the answer to that question. And more importantly, even if you figure out what's really ideal for you now, that could change over time. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not just like, this is what's best for me and that's going to be it for the rest of my life. Like, your relationship will change and maybe how you handle this subject could end up going from one thing to the other depending on when and where. Little bits of information. I got a piece of data from the Journal of Gerontology, and they show that downsizers report a higher life satisfaction due to reduced chores, less stuff to do. On the other hand, at least 40% of people that downsize do experience, at least in the beginning, an initial feeling of kind of grief over losing maybe how much space you had before or the freedom to do what you want. So that is another thing to consider as far as the lifestyle and emotional impact of making this type of move. Another bit of info, we got a survey from the Pew Research Center said that 60% of people that are considered seniors, they really value staying close to family. I don't think that needs to be isolated to just people who are seniors. Everybody values that, right? So it's obvious. But again, on the other hand of that same topic, a lot of adult children have reported that they can feel a feeling of like maybe burden or a lot of pressure to make sure everything goes well when helping someone who has decided to stay at home instead of moving into maybe a place where they can get some more care. Really just decide what's most important to you. It's going to require purposeful thinking, and you got to use both your emotional brain and your logical brain when coming up with these decisions. Reaching out to professionals who work in this space, like not just myself, but Bob and Hassan here, we can really help you find not what we think is right, but what you think might be right for you, and that's what's most important. And as far as the house itself, there's a great process that some contractors and handymen go through. It's a certification called CAPS, and it stands for Certified Aging in Place Specialists. And if you're looking to do anything to your home, we can make recommendations. We know people in that space, but even if you're just looking on your own, I would find someone who's CAPS certified to help make sure that they're going to do the right thing for you and getting your property squared away so that it can be safer and allow you to stay there for a longer period of time. Who has maybe thoughts, questions, a stance maybe they think where they land already on some of these subjects? I'm open to hear if anybody's willing to share their thoughts. Okay. That's quite all right.